Jealousy, it's something that plagues us all. It is a feeling that we get inside that is incredibly powerful, and it's incredibly good at toxifying and sabotaging relationships. Not just romantic, all of them. Friends, family, work, whatever. Total strangers on the street or that we meet at a dinner party, right? Jealousy and envy, which is kind of adjacent, is something we're going to talk about today. And by the end, I hope you will have a better understanding of what's going on and what we can do about it. So, jealousy is something that arises when there's this person over there, right? And this person is going to go do something or invest their time somewhere, right? So let's make the distinction between jealousy and envy. Envy is like they have something that I wish I had and I don't. And jealousy is that we have something that I care about and it looks to me like you're going to give that thing to somebody else. Okay, what am I talking about here? Jealousy is going to be the thing that comes up when it's like maybe we're in relationship, maybe we're not, but we have some kind of connection and I like the attention that you're giving me. I like the way you give me attention. I like the quantity of the attention you're giving me. Maybe I just like the fact that you give me attention, period. For the people that are kind of stuck in the table scraps dynamic. And it's just like you're giving me this energy, attention, which is validation. Because, humans, we have a finite amount of time on this earth. And when you really boil things down, like kind of philosophically, our only real currency is time. And so if I give you a significant amount of my time, I am telling you, without words, I'm demonstrating to you that you're valuable to me, that you matter, that this interaction that we're having is worthy of my time. So when we expend time and energy on a person, it kind of has an innate validating effect. It is received as validation. It is received oftentimes as approval. And the more desperate, let's use a different word, the deeper their unresolved attachment wounds are, the more excitement and pleasure and that they will get from that kind of validating energy. And you see this all the time. You see someone who walks into a meeting or a party or engages with some new person, and they basically have a brief little interaction that to me is nothing more than being friendly. But the person on the other side, it's like they're just like, woo, and they just go over the moon with excitement and just this euphoric bliss that kind of falls over them, and they'll just be like, oh my God, I'm so in love. And it's like, oh, he spoke to me. She looked at me, whatever, right? There's this whole transaction, this whole currency moving back and forth of like time and attention, which totally fits into the core attachment wound or the core attachment need, which is I have a fundamental instinctive craving to be wanted, chosen, and prioritized. And so when you give me attention, I feel wanted, chosen, and prioritized. Okay, so that's the background to get us to the point where we understand that this thing that's going on here is that you're giving me this attention and I like it. And then what happens is I start to have a suspicion or maybe see evidence or maybe we talk about it. I mean, maybe it's completely open communication. Any of those are possible. But we get to the point where I begin to understand that this attention that you're giving to me, you're also giving to someone else. Or maybe you're giving to someone else and not giving it to me anymore. Or maybe just I fear that you're going to give this attention that I like so much to somebody else. think of it like, silly and simple. And we'll just say it's like cookies. It's like you just baked a whole bunch of delicious cookies, which are my favorite. And you've been giving me a cookie every day. And I'm just like, oh my God, it's my favorite cookie. And I love it so much. But now you're only giving me half a cookie. And then you're only giving me a couple of crumbs of a cookie. And I'm just like, well, if I knew that your life was difficult and you couldn't bake cookies so much anymore, you're struggling with something going on, that's okay. I can, I'm sad. I wish you were still giving me the cookie, but I can tolerate this because eventually the cookies will come back, right? But then I see that you're giving those cookies to somebody else. I'm just getting the crumbs left over and you're giving that info to somebody else. Attention, cookies, pleasure, whatever. This is where jealousy rises from. Jealousy is that dynamic that you were giving me something or you are giving me something, and I have lots of anxious, uncomfortable feelings that come up inside me when I think about the idea that you're going to give that to somebody else. And if we want to simplify this even further and get edgy, which I'm kind of known for, is that jealousy is just a pretty sparkly word we're putting on top of fear, because that's what it's really about. Jealousy is nothing more than I am afraid. I'm afraid of something happening. What is the thing you're afraid of? I'm afraid that you're going to give your attention to that other girl over there. Or other guy, whatever, right? It doesn't really matter. I'm afraid. Okay, so what, right? They're giving their attention to somebody else. But we know that they have a finite amount of attention in their world, in their life, in their day. And so if you go over there and you give 6 hours of attention to this new person and you're laughing and joking and having all this great time, and then you come back to me and I only get 10 or 20 minutes, it's like you're telling me that that other person is more important than I am. You're telling me that other person is more valuable than I am. You're telling me that person is more lovable, more desirable, more funny, more attractive. You're telling me that I am less than. And that feels nasty. That's a very difficult, uncomfortable emotion to face. And so we have an innate fear of discomfort and an aversion to it, right? And so all this stuff is going on underneath the surface. And my subconscious, which is the seat of my emotions, like this, literally the source, the control panel of my emotions, sees this potential coming that like we're going to get, like if this keeps happening, or maybe whatever, right? It's anticipating some future or watching it play out in the moment. But basically it says, if this keeps happening, that your attention goes to other people, if you keep prioritizing other people over me, we're going to feel horrible. We're going to feel yucky and unwanted and unlovable and broken and everything else. And we don't want to feel that. So we need to change the situation. I don't want to feel that feeling. So we need to go do something about it. We need to prepare for it. We need to do the things we need to do to make sure that that never happens. We need to reach out and grab them and make sure that they don't put their attention anywhere else. We need to like attack them and shame them into a situation where they stop giving their attention to other people. We need to be watchful and vigilant. Like we need to snoop on the phone, or follow them someplace, or hire a private investigator, or create a false social media account and then test them. These are things I've seen. These are literally all things I've seen in the real world from people that are struggling with massive jealousy issues. And I get it. I was there. Like I had massive jealousy issues through many of the relationships in years ago. And it's toxic as hell. And it turns me into a fearful, frothing monster I let it go untreated, unattended, if I just let it run rampant in my life, it makes me be the worst version of myself. And then I toxify the relationships, and then they end up leaving anyway for people that are more regulated, more fun, more joyful, more everything. And then I end up feeling less than, and I end up feeling horrible. And that was the loop I was in for years. Years. And the sick, tragic part of this is that the number of people we see that think that this is reasonable and appropriate behavior. They think that that's a reasonable and appropriate set of emotions to experience. Well, not so much the emotions, but the actions that they take in response to those difficult emotions. Because why wouldn't they? Literally, like every movie, book, TV show, whatever, has this messaging built into it that if like you really care about someone, jealousy is a totally appropriate response. And they will even celebrate it, fetishize it even. And then there's the people in the audience that watch this and they're just like, yeah, you go, girl. Like, you go do the extreme action that's destructive or violent or whatever, right? You got them back. You're the victim here. That's not the path. I mean, you can choose that path if you want to, but don't expect it to be a happy one. And don't expect your relationships to be healthy or last. Jealousy, the path of jealousy really only has one direction, and that's down. It will get worse with time. It will make the partner feel compressed and extremely high expectations. It will destroy communication because there's so much emotional intensity and dysregulation going on that what happens is the subconscious on one side or the other, usually on the other side, begins to reach the conclusion that like, oh, the best way I have to prevent these dramatic moments that keep happening over and over is to just not talk about it. It's to just not share what is actually going on inside me. So now we've got an even bigger rift, right? You're sitting there being like, give me attention, give me this love and affection and validation. Like, that's what I want. And the person is like literally getting further and further away because they're just like, oh my God, please just give me a chance. Give us a chance to just be calm and regulated for a minute. Because the constant cloying and the grasping and the chasing it's very dysregulated. It has tremendous amount of expectation attached to it and demand. And then a normal, healthy human being will resist that. They can tolerate it for a while, but it will eventually reach the point where they tap out and they say, I can't do this anymore. And it's like, okay, what evidence do I have for that? Loads of relationships that I've helped where one person comes in extremely anxious and the other person is somewhere between secure, maybe they're avoidant, doesn't really matter. And I know because I used to be anxious and I'm in all these schools where there's people studying attachment theory and they say, well, if they're avoidant, you know, blah, 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 blah. It's like, yeah, maybe they are. But you chose them and you keep choosing them. And they're showing you what they have available. And so, like, this is not a situation where you're the victim because you are stepping into a situation with someone who's actually presented to you what they're capable of and exactly how the relationship is going to go down in the confines of their capacity. And they say, well, still, like if they have a capacity to give this much love or validation or attention, whatever, why aren't they giving it to me? And it's like, they're not giving it to me because I've spent the last 6 weeks, 6 months, 6 years demanding it constantly and showing them repeatedly that I will not be okay I will dysregulate. My life will be miserable. I'll be sad. I'll be full of expectation and demands and everything else if you don't give me what I want. That is an unhealthy dynamic to be in for both sides. And I'll say it again. I've been there. I walked that path. And I thought I was so justified. I thought I was, I'd use I statements and I'd read the self-help books and I'd, study nonviolent communication and I'd meditate and blah, blah, blah. I did all these things thinking that I was doing it right and I was justified. And now I'm still in this space, I'm still in these schools, and I see all these people that are stuck in the same loops that I was. And they're coming at relationships with this like massive entitlement that is very, very clear when you know what the signs are. But of course, they connect with people that don't know the signs, and so they don't see it coming. And there's like, oh, this is great, and we're having fun, and we'll go through this little honeymoon phase, and it's just like, woo, we're having so much fun, and this is so great. But then this weight of this expectation comes upon their shoulders, and they're like, wait, this is not what I signed up for. And then they begin to retreat and pull away. And of course, as soon as they retreat and pull away, the person on the other side starts reaching further. They're like chasing. They're like, no, there's this thing. It was beautiful. It was beautiful 6 months ago. What's wrong? I still love you the same much. Why don't you love me the same way? Like, what's happened here? Like, you're destroying this relationship on purpose. You're choosing to move away. You're the bad guy. I'm the victim. And if you've watched any of this stuff, you know that is not the path. So what do we do about this? I'm going to focus mostly on the people that are experiencing jealousy. The person on the other side, if you're out there and you want guidance, shoot me a message. I'll make a whole video just for you. This is for the people that are experiencing jealousy and jealousy chronically shows up in their life. Okay? First off, and I'm going to repeat language that I've heard from clients and friends and people I've worked with over the years. Like, don't make me jealous, right? They'll say this phrase, don't make me jealous. Or if he just didn't do the thing that made me jealous, everything would be okay, right? Or if I'm feeling jealousy here, I'm feeling jealousy because you did something, right? We need to wipe that away. All of that is incredibly toxic and unhealthy. And I'm sorry if this is you. I really am. I know that was me, right? So I'm like saying these words partly to my own previous self. There is no person on earth that can make you jealous. Your jealousy lives inside you. Your jealousy is an emanation of your own fears that are unresolved, and you're still terrified, right? And that actually is really harsh to hear, and I'm sorry for that. But one of the reasons that's so important is because that shows us the path out. So if we really sink into it and we say, okay, jealousy is just a pretty word for fear. Yeah, I'm terrified. What are you terrified of? What am I terrified of when I see this person that I care about immensely giving their attention to somebody else? What I'm afraid of is exactly the thing I was talking about earlier, which is just like, I'm going to have to come face to face with a moment where I can see that I'm not enough. I have to come face to face with an idea, a moment when what my partner is telling me is that like someone else is more interesting or important or attractive or funny or whatever. I'm going to come face to face with that if this keeps happening. And there'll be people that'll talk about, I just get so angry. That's super common. Super, super common. Jealousy is usually more attached to anger than it is to fear. That in common, kind of the common belief of the community and the internet and everything else. They think jealousy is something that evokes anger. Yes, it does. But the thing to understand there is anger is just a pretty mask that sits on top of fear. There is no anger that doesn't come from fear on some level underneath. So the way to understand this is to say, I'm feeling all this anger because my partner is doing something where, he's following bikini clad girls on Instagram, or, here's a guy talking about, it's just like, oh, here's this girl that I adore, but she goes to these dances and she's dancing with all these guys and she's like moving in this way where she just looks beautiful and sexy. And I'm feeling jealousy over that. And then she comes home and I'm angry and I'm just silent treatment and slamming doors. And how could you act that way? And I don't know, I feel like I've seen it all, right? And then, of course, the worst case situations are where the people have so much anger inside and so unskilled at processing it or dealing with it that it just erupts out of them in violent outbursts. The thing to understand here is that those outbursts are driven by an anger, and that anger is driven by fear and sadness. And if you can identify the fear and release the charge that it has over us to make it less scary, the anger evaporates. And when the anger evaporates, so does the outbursts. So does the protest behavior. So what we need to do about this is we need to first recognize that there is no person on earth that can make me feel jealous, no matter what they do. They can act in a way that is a violation of our agreement. They can act in a way that prioritizes other people over me. They can act in a way where they're pursuing their own selfish desires without a second thought about the impact that will have on me or our relationship or maybe even our children. These are things that they can do. I don't need to respond with jealousy to any of those. There's no law, there's no relationship police, there's no moral imperative that says I need to respond with jealousy and anger and to any of this. Because allowing that to take over my system just makes me dysregulated. It makes me miserable. It literally sabotages any chance of things getting better. And it's very likely to get us behind the victim card and kind of the whole righteous entitlement thing, which we know toxifies relationships really, really well. So we don't want to do that. So what do? We need to figure out what it is we're afraid of. I'm afraid of your attention going to someone else. I'm afraid of feeling miserable. I'm afraid of a big, nasty, uncomfortable emotion. And here's the thing. Some of you have heard of the term shadow work. This is what's going on, is that I've got a shadow or a belief inside me that I'm not really that good. Because in the past, I was rejected. In the past, when I really needed mom or dad to be there for me, they weren't. And then there is this belief that arises inside me during those moments. This is where the whole attachment wounds come from. Those attachment wounds create a story or a lesson or a belief inside my system that says there are other things more important than me. In that moment, I really needed you, mom, or I really needed you, dad. And you chose to go give your attention or assistance or nurturing or whatever to somebody else. And sometimes it's just picking up a phone call. It's like, I need you right now, and you're telling me to wait so that you can go answer this phone. Boy, I feel like shit. I feel like I'm not very important in your life. And this is kind of the nature of attachment wounds, is that, this is one that the jealous people will probably resonate with. It is one thing to have a person say, you're important. Okay, they say it with words. Where's the action, right? Okay, so then it gets better. And then they show me and they say, hey, let's go out on Friday night. I want to take you to dinner, or I want to do something special for you. And you're just like, oh, yeah, I feel special, whatever, right? But if I know that on Friday nights they're free and open and they don't really have anything going on, then it's just like, yay, it's nice. They didn't have anything to do, and so they're choosing me. That's great. But there's something else that happens when it's just like, oh, you have 6 people asking you for your time. You've been invited to go out to do these parties and presentations and blah, blah, blah. Like there's all this stuff that where your attention is being demanded, and you choose to put all those on the back burner and then come prioritize me. That is the stuff of euphoria. That is the stuff that sends us to the moon, right? You'll see this in kind of more primitive ways. I've really only seen this with women, but I'm sure it goes both ways. But where it's like they intentionally get their guy that they want the attention from kind of in the presence of other attractive women, and then they're watching him like a hawk. And it's just like, do you look at any of them? Do you check them out? Are you interacting with any of them? And it's like, oh no, you're not. And you're going to come over here and you're going to bring me a drink and you're going to sit down and talk with me. It's like, oh, okay, you're safe. Right? Testing. Super toxic. So we identify where the fears are and figure out what it is that I'm actually afraid of. And then I need to get in touch with that experience. Because if this is what's going on, it's very, very indicative that you have been avoiding confronting this forever. And that's what it really comes down to. So the thing that really needs to happen here is we need to come face to face with that uncomfortable situation. We need to figure out a way to get my system able to face that fear directly. I need to get my conscious mind, my subconscious mind, inner child, nervous system regulation, whatever word you want to use to describe this. I need to get to the point where I can hold myself calm in the face of this idea that like I am not the most attractive woman in this room. That other girl that he's talking to is more attractive than me. She is more desirable than me. She is more lovable than me. Why would you do this, Kirby? Trust me. This is the path out. It is not easy, but it is systematic, approachable, and it has very, very good results. Because if I spend my whole life terrified of something and I put all my energy and anger and fear into manipulating the world around me to avoid ever getting to this point where I have to face an uncomfortable emotion, good luck. We see it all the time. Your relationships will be sabotaged. You will be in toxic dynamics one time after another. You'll have a never-ending series of like kind of subversive, unrealized trauma responses. More on that in other videos. You'll be chronically dissatisfied, and very likely you'll feel hopeless. And I don't want that for any of you. I want each and every one of you to reach the point of like emotional power and strength and grounded calm that you stop bringing that kind of energy to your relationships, because then those relationships can thrive. If I get to the point where I can accept my partner completely and wholly as they are, even if their attention is going elsewhere, that relationship has a chance. People say, what are you talking about? How can you? How can you be in a relationship with someone that's giving their attention elsewhere? And it's like, the fact that you ask that question tells me that your relationships are predominantly transactional. I come here and I engage in this relationship to get validation from you. And I'm going to sit here, I'm going to give you validation or attention or sex or a pretty man or woman to hang on your shoulder when you go out in public so you can kind of show off. And I'm doing the same. And it becomes this whole transactional nature. We are in a tit for tat exchange of I'm going to give you this and you give me that. And that's another thing. Unfortunately, I see it constantly, almost daily. People that are in relationships that are just clearly, chronically transactional, and they don't even know it. They think they're just doing the normal stuff that you do in relationships. So I want to be in a place where I accept my partner completely and wholly as they are. And I want my partner to accept me completely and wholly as I am. And I'm going to have moments where my attention is off on other things. It does not mean that this relationship is in peril. It does not mean that our connection is peril. In fact, tragically, it's the opposite. is that I'm with you and I'm connected with you and we're having a good time and I like you and you like me. And then you have a moment where you see someone who's truly attractive, or you see a situation that you truly want to go invest in. And in doing so, you have to take away some of the attention on this relationship or me. And I say, go do that. I want you to be your most joyful self. I want you to chase the things that you have excitement and dreams for. And the guy's like, what are you talking about? You want me to like go chat with this girl? I'm like, only if that's what you want to do. You want me to like, what, you want me to like go give my attention to other people? I'm like, if that's what you truly want to do, then do what you truly want to do. I want you to be your fullest, most authentic self. And then when you figure out what it is you really want to do, then we got to figure out if we're actually compatible. And then the guy's over here being like, well, like it is kind of fun and interesting and whatever. And so, yeah, I'm going to go do that. And then he goes over and he gets all invested, comes back and be like, okay, like this isn't really the kind of dynamic that I want to be in. Was that a test? Kind of, but not really. It's not a test in the sense of like, I'm going to test you and watch you like a hawk to see if you fail. Cause I got this whole, it's that like, I want you legitimately, truly to be who you are and to pursue the things that you really want to pursue in the truest way that you're capable of. And then you go do that. And then it's like, okay, this is the real you. There's no jokes here. There's no masks. There's no anything else. And I'm doing the same thing and be like, oh, well, we're actually finding that there's aspects of this where we're not actually compatible. And now let's sit down and talk about that. Do we want to try to figure out a way to kind of like manage these incompatibilities and then move forward? Or do we want to just like part gracefully as friends? I hope it's starting to become clear here that like this jealousy thing can be solved. It does not need to plague your life. It does not need to plague any of our lives. And it definitely is something that you have agency and control over. And you can change your future by doing some work inside in the moments that you're not activated, you're not triggered, and you're not actually reacting to anything fearful in this moment. You're just like, take a time when you're feeling good. Take a time when you're feeling peaceful. Go to a waterfall or sit by a fireplace or whatever and sit down in those moments and say, what is it that I'm really afraid of? Think about all the times in your life you've had extreme jealousy, sadness, hopelessness, terror that you're going to lose a partner. Think about those moments and figure out what's the common thread that connects those two together. What are you so afraid of? And then begin working on exercises that will help you face that fear. How long can you sit still without doing anything, without meditating, without numbing out, without doing substances or smoking or scrolling on the phone or anything else? You're going to sit still with the idea that it's like someone else is better than me. And it makes sense that this person that I love and adore so much would go give their energy and time and attention to someone else. And I can be okay with that. I know that I will survive. I know that I'll be okay. Maybe this relationship ends. Maybe it doesn't. But I will be okay. And we do that as a way of training our nervous system to understand and believe. See, we're going back and reprogramming the beliefs of fear and terror. We're training our nervous system. Every time we go face that fear, we're teaching our nervous system that it's actually not that scary. I can go face that fear and look, I'm sitting here by a waterfall. I'm still alive. I'm still thriving. I still got lots of things going on. It's like, oh, but I feel so alone. Yes, that's your attachment wound speaking. Work on those too. It's like, I feel so betrayed. I feel so disrespected. Okay, what does that even mean? People, personally, I don't like the term disrespect, respect or disrespect. And this was challenged to me by a clinical therapist who challenged me on it and said, we don't use that term around here because it's meaningless. And I'm like, how do you mean meaningless? And she's like, try to define it. I'm like, whoa, Disrespect is when they're not respecting me. Okay, define respect. Respect is when they're taking my opinions and my feelings into account when they take an action. And she's like, okay, then say that instead. I'm like, damn, you're right. The term disrespect, respect, and disrespect usually are just, again, glittery, fancy words that sit on top of a really basic concept, and that is they are prioritizing me. They are taking my experience into account when they make an action, or they're prioritizing my experience, right? It's just, are they prioritizing me? Are they not? And so this idea, she's disrespecting me, it's like, that means she is prioritizing something else, maybe her own values, maybe another person, maybe, social status with her friends, over my emotional experience. Basically, she's not caretaking for my emotions. And I'm angry about that because I don't want to be in a situation where my partner's stops treating my emotions as if it's the most important thing in her life. Wait, what does that say about me? Wait, how selfish am I? Very. Jealousy is fear. Jealousy is a fancy word we put on top of an experience where we are in a state of panic trying to avoid facing a difficult experience, which is a difficult emotion. Jealousy is an act of fearful aggression, fear-driven aggression, trying to manipulate others and manipulate the world around us so that I don't have to face an uncomfortable emotion. That's why it's so toxic. That's why it sabotages relationships. And that's why it sabotages our own soul. Because when we let that run rampant in our life, it's just like every aspect of it is nasty. But the good news is all of that can be reprogrammed. All of that can be rewired. You don't have to live in fear of this anymore. And you can have all these ideas about what's appropriate behavior and what's not in relationships and whatever else. And it's like, go for it. Keep believing those things. Like, if that serves you well, great. But what I'm saying is that if you have jealousy that shows up in your life ever, you've got work to do. If you so choose. You can choose not to. The outcome of that is very, very consistent, and it is negative. But if you choose to do that work and resolve these fears and get to the point where I can be calm and grounded even when someone is telling me I'm not great, even when something I care about is walking out the door, if I can be calm, grounded, and secure in those moments, I have freedom. I have agency. I get to make choices. I get to end relationships in calm, gracious manners that allow this lovely person that I've been invested in for all these years, we can maintain a caring friendship. Sure, there's patterns, the cycle of grief and some other things that need to happen, but it's just like healing the things inside me that were making me so toxically jealous allowed me to step into a world where people I've been connected with romantically, friends, otherwise, those relationships are deeper, more mutually supportive and fulfilling, and they will be friends for the rest of my life. Instead of all those situations where it's like, I'm so crazy about you. Oh my God, you crossed the line. You disrespected me. I'm never speaking to you again. We don't want to go that path. I hope this has been helpful. This is not an easy topic. And for every one of you out there that's struggling with jealousy, if you're still listening to this, I believe in you. There is a way out. And if you got any questions or you need help or you're feeling this overwhelming intensity, message me. Reach out. I will help. Peace.